Finnegans Wake, Part 1, Chapter 6. So, how do you know tonight, lazy and gentlemen? The echo is where in the back of the woads. Call him forth. Sean McIrewick, brief dragger, for the concerns of Messieurs Jean Jameson and Song, rated 100 and thin per store 100 on this nightly queesqueed cock of the 12 apostrophes set by Jocket McIrewick. He misunderstruck and aimed for Amolo of number 3 of them, and left his free natural riposts to 4 of them in their own fine artful disorder. 1. What second to none mither rector, and Maximos bridges maker, was the first to rise taller through his bean stale than the blue gum baobabon or the giganteous Wellingtonia sequoia? Went nudie boots with trouters into a Lafayette when she was barely in her tricklies, was well known to cloud a conciliation cap onto the esker of his hooth, sports a Chianganger's Albert solemnly over his Hollander's opulence, though he weighed a new ton where there felled his first lapapel, gave the heinousness of choice to every night betwixt yesterdicks and tomaries, had 7 successive coloured saraben maids on the same big white drawing room hearthrug, is a will be forced to this hour at house, as he was in Heather, pumped the Catholic wartree and shocked the Protestant boyne, killed his own hungry self in anger as a young man, found fodder for 5 when all Markin Rose go flooded, with Irish tutors Cornish made easy, voucher of rotables Tull of the road, bred many-headed stepsons for one leap-your-own tafter, is too funny for a fish and has too much outside for an insect, like a heptagon crystalled and prisms, trues and false for us, is infinite swell in unfitting induments. Once was he shovelled, and once was he arsoned, and once was he inundered, and she hung him out Bill Bailey. Has a quadrant in his tile to tell Toller Cat a clog it is. Offers chances to long on, but stands up to leg before. Found coal at the end of his harrow, and moss roses behind the seams. Made a fort out of his postern, and wrote F-E-R-T on his buckler. Is escape master-in-chief from all sorts of holding places. If he out-harrods against barkers, to the school-bred he acts whitely. Was evacuated at the mere appearance of 3 Germans, and twice besieged by a sweep. From zoomorphology to omni-animalism, he is broached by the spin of a coin. Towers an Eddystone amid the lampless, casting swan beams on the deep. Threatens thunder upon malefactors, and sends whispers up Frau's frou-frous. When Duck Hookback Crook upsits his ass boostworthies jeer and junker, but they booze him ooze and baz his ass when he looks like Hunket Plunket. By so Sansos in search a party on a lady of this city. Business, reading newspaper, smoking cigar, arranging tumblers on table, eating meals, pleasure, etc., pleasure, eating meals, arranging tumblers on table, smoking cigar, reading newspapers, business, minerals, wash and brush up, local views, juju toffee, comic and birthdays cards. Those were the days, and he was their hero. Pink sunset shower, red clay cloud, sorrow of Sahara, axe hide or iron. Arraigned and attained, listed and lifted, lighted, pleaded and proved. Catches his check at Bank of England and endorses his dome at chapel exit. brain of the Franks, hand of the Christian, tongue of the North. Commands to dinner and calls the bluff. Has a block at Morgan's and a hash all the after lunch. Plays Gehammerat when he's Ernst, but Mrs. Bousey when he's lustig. Walked as far as the head where he sat in state as the rump. Shows early English trace marks and a marigold window with manigilt lights, a myrioscope, 2 remarkable piscines, and 3 well worth seeing ambries. Arches all portcullised, and his nave dates from dots. Is a horologe unstoppable, and the ben of all bells. Foot, east, and heret, and though he's mildew-stained, he's mouldy-stoned. Is a quercus in the forest, but plain member for Megalopolis. Mountain mighty, fawn fleetfoot. Plank in our platform, blank in our scothorn. Hide all, in carucates, he is enumerated. Hold as an earl, he counts. Ship-shaped phrase of bug-looking words with a form like the easing moments of a gram in a Burrus. To our dooms brought he law, our manwars he made his will of. Was an overgrind to the underground, an aqueduct for fiery throats. Sends boys in socks a cough-a-whooping when he lets forth his carbon oxide, and silk stockings show their shapings when he looses hose on hers. Stocks dry powder for the ill people and Pinkins pellets for all the pale. Gave his Monday foot to Miserius, her pinch to Annalivia, the superfine pigtail to Ceresia Serosia, and quid rides to Caseous, Caseous, and Sempronius. Made the man who had no notion of shopkeepers feel he'd rather play the duke than play the gentleman. Shot 2 quains and shook 3 cascals when he won his game of dwarfs. Fumes inwards like a strombolus till he smokes at both ends. Man mote be fired of him, womankind, pitad. Shows 1 white drift of snow among the gorse growth of his crown, and a chaperon of repentance on that which shed gore. Pause and quies, triple bill. Went by metro for the polis, and then hoved by. To the finders hail, woe you that seek, whom filth had plenished, dearth devoured. Hock is leading, Coco comes next, Emery tries for the flag. Can dance the O'Bruin's polar pass at Newlhan to his orchestra's accompaniment. Took place before the International Convention of Catholic Midwives, and found stead before the Congress for the study of endonational calamities. Makes a delictuous entree and finishes off the course between sweets and savories. Flouts for forecasts, flares for fines, and the fun of the fray on the fairground. Cleared out 365 idols to set up 1 all halassel for henwives hoping to have males. The flohula, the grasping one, the kindler of paschal fire, forbids us our trespassers as we forgate him. The phoenix be his pyre, the cineres his sire, piles big Pelium on little osses like the pills of Herculeids, has an Oedipus complex and a drink the dregs kink, worst meats for chumps and cow carlos for scullions. When he plies for our favour is very trolley ours. 2 psychic espousals and 3 desertions. May be matter of fact now, but was fodder of magd then. Catermole Hill, ex-mountain of flesh, was rear up by stress and sank under strain. Tank it up, tells the tailor to his tout. And totkas for a man, but bit a thimble for a maid. Blimp, blump, a dud letter, a sing-a-song, a syllable, a byword, a sentence with surcease. While stands his can you see him frails shall fall. Was hatched at Selbridge, but ejaculated abroad. As it gan in the beginnings, so wound up in a battle of boss. Roderick, 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 oh, you've gone the way of old Danes. Variously catalogued, regularly regrouped, a bush boy's holiday, a quacker's mating, a wench's sandbath, the same homo hetheris checking lost egg, as when solly I early blew ye. Real detonation but false report. Spa mad but insane. 500,000 via bogus census but an All Street houseman when all upand. Is the handiest of all Andes and a most elegant spot to dump your hump. Hands his secession to the new Patricius, but plumps phlegmatically for the bloody old centuries. Eats with doors open and rots with gates closed. Some dub him Rothschild, and more limb him Rocky Fellow. Shows he's fly to both hemispheres, but tries to cover up his tracers. 7 dove coats go claim to have been pigeonheim to his Homer. Smyrnian robe a Kolongskrieg, Sea Point, Quayhouth, Ashtown, Rathany. Independent of the lordship of Chamberlain, acknowledging the rule of Rome, we saw thy farm at useful prime, Domna, Domnhall. Reeks like Iribelpis, and looks like Iceland's ear. Lodged at quat places, lived through taut rains. Takes a swim bath for his weekend, and a wasser nap for his refreshment. After a good bout at stool ball, enjoys Geoffrey Geoffla, what never more missed in Colombo found. Believes in every man his own goalkeeper, and in Africa for the full blacks. The arc of his drive was 40 full, and his stumps were pulled at 80. Boasts him to the thickened dews, the oldest creator in Ariania, and looks down on the Swiss family courtesans, whom he calls les nouvelles roches. Though his heart, soul, and spirit turn to far-off times, his love, faith, and hope stick to futurism. Light leg lifters sends him Soriantes from afore, while Boer browbenders curse him Gromelance to his hindmost. Between yo lasses and yellats, glimpse of evens. The log his peak has, the lock his pile. Drinks thar and wadhar for his asthma, and eats the unperishable sow to stave off regular rack. The beggars cloak them reclined about his paddy stool, the whores winking as they walk their side on Christian Mass at Advent Lodge. New Yealand. After a Lenti illness, the rover and Mr. Easterling of Pentecostitis. No followers by bequest, fanfare all private. Gone where glory waits him, bah, bulletist. But not here yet, Maxwell Clark. Cominced under articles, but finished a Borgias. From the vat on the bear, through the burr in the dark, to the bottle of the bawn, is one of the highest, but roll ray his root. Filled fand of heckleberries, when as all was tuck and toss up for him as a youngster to fall foul of Hawken Betchers, wherein he had gauged the use of raisin. Adds elements, dastos, wraps rustics, tams turmoil. Sasseed enough for assemination, but sool skivvies on the sly. Learned to speak from hand to mouth till he could talk Irish with his eyes shut. Hacked his way through hick-hack hawks, but hanged his help from their hereafters. Rialto's Annis leg, bin in bows to say nothing a talk of new coming. The gleam of the glow of the shine of the sun through the dearth of the dearth on the blush of the brick of the viled vill of Barnroom has dust turned to brown. These died to tartan him, ruru, dulse, bracken, teasel, fuller's ash, sundew and cress. Long gun, but not forgotten. Stood his sharp assault of famine, but grew girther and girther. He has 24 or so cousins germinating in the United States of America, and a namesake with an initial difference in the once kingdom of Poland. His first's a young rose, and his second's French-Egyptian, and his whole means a slump at Christie's. Forth of his pierced part came the woman of his dreams, blood thicker than water last strayed overseas. Boy shap of glinty look, Earl of Hode, you and I are in him surrented by brown buildings. Ellen's flea pot perhaps, but Huang Chang every time. He was one of your high, big, pipey boys, but fancy him as smoking fags at his time of life. Mount of mish mel of moy, and 2 cardinal ventures and 3 capital sinks, has a peep in his pocket-book and a packet-boat in his keep, BVH, BLG, PPM, TDS, VBD, TCH, LON, is breakfates, lunger, diener, and super. As the streets were paved with cold, he felt his toe airy, taught himself skating and learned how to fall, distinctly dirty but rather a dear, Holvith chieftains everywhere with mortar. Ostman Effendi, Sir J. Padishah, bosses too many, outpreams all his parasites. First of the Fenians, Roy des Fenians. His tiara of scones was held unfillable till one Liam felled him in Westminster, was struck out of his situm when he rose solely to Damask. Us, and to our appalling predicament, brought as plagues from Budapest. But the match head on an aspen stalk, and set the living afire, speared the rod and spoiled the lightning, married with cakes and repunced with pleasure. Till he was buried, how happy was he, and he made the welkins ring with up macabre. God at the top of the staircase, carrying on the mat of straw. The falsehood of a spindler web chokes the cave mouth of his unsightliness, but the nestlings that live in his leaf screen sing him a lover of arbutes. We strike hands over his bloodied war sheet, but we are pledged entirely to his green mantle. Our friend Vikeleagle, our swarin foy, under the 4 stones by his streams, who vanished the wassail bowl at the joy of shells. Mora and Laura had a hill of a high time looking down on his Confucium, till firm look in readiness, forward spear, and the windfoot of Corach strewed the lake mist of Lego over the last of his fields. We darkened for you, falterer, in the year of mourning, but we'll fill to the dim twinklers when the streamy Morven light calls up the sunbeam. His striped pantaloons, his rather strange walk. Hereditatis columna erecta, hagion chiton eraphon. Nods a nap for the nonce, but crows cheerio when they get ecumenical. Is a simultaneous equator of eliminated integras, when 3 upon 1 is by inspection improper, has the most conical hodpiece of Confucianist heronym, and that chuffest chin of his is like a footsie kungaloo around Tay Shantyland. He's as globeful as a gasometer of lithium and luridity. He's as globeful as a gasometer of lithium and luridity, and he was thrice 10 annular years before he wallowed round radiant circus. The cobblestone at his coping of his cavern is a canine constant, but only an American could approximate the appropriosity of his atlas's allongement. Stickler rights and lefts at Battersdown in his hunt for the boar Tworth, but made his end with the Madrids, and came at him in Camden Street. A Hannibal in exhaustive conflict, and Otho to return, burning body to eager air on melting mountain and wooing wave. We go into him, sleepy children. We come out of him, strucklers for life. He divested to save from the Mrs. Drownings, the rival queens of Grimshaw, Bragshaw, and Renshaw, made off with his stolen clothes, taxed and rated, licensed and ranted. His three-faced stone head was found on the White Horse Hill, and the print of his costless feet is seen in the goat's grass circle. Pooh the blind, toe the deaf, and called dumb, lame, and haughty. Miraculon, Monstrucaline, led the applause at the creation, and hissed the snake charmer off her stays. Hounded become hunter, hunter become fox, harrier marries, terrier Tav, Olaf the axeman, Thorker the Torrible. You feel he is Vespasian, yet you think of him as Aurelius. Wagamore, traitory, socianist, commonizer. Made a summer assault on your shores, and Be Giddy got his sands full. First he shot down Raglan Road, and then he tore up Marlborough Place. Cromlech Height and Cromwell Hill were his far-famed feet rests when our lurch as lout let free into the lubber he loved. Marishad his ward moats, and delimited the main, netted before nibbling, can scarce turn a scale, but, grossed after meals, weighs a town in himself. Banba prayed for his conversion. Burle missed that grand old voice. A colossus among cabbages, a Malaran citron of fruits, larger than life, doughtier than death. Grand Turco, orange formant, Laxem bulgur, leper lean. The sparkle of his genial fancy, the depth of his calm sagacity, the clearness of his spotless honour, the flow of his boundless benevolence, our family fur-bear, our tribal turnpike. Quarry was he invincible, and cur was he burked. Partitioned Irscarholm, United Irishman, he took a swig at his own mither, but she tested a bit gorky, and as for the salmon, he was coming up in him all life long. Calm Eilerdick, Kecklebury, and Sawyer the Warden, silent as the bee in honey, stark as the breath in hawk, Costello, Kinsella, Mahoney Moran. Though you rope Amric, your home ruler is Dan. Figure right. He is hoisted by the scurve of his shaggy neck, figure left. He is rationed in isobaric patties among the crew. One asks, was he poisoned? One thinks, how much did he leave? Ex-gardener, Reisensberger. Fitted up with planturous existences, would make rose greedy mites, little hoes. Taught sheets and scuppers awash, but the oil-sick Mac Leibsterpit mixed his aquascutum. The enjoyment he took in K women, the employment he gave to G men, sponsor to a squad of piercers, ally to a host of Rowleys,
against lightning, explosion, fire, earthquake, flood, whirlwind, burglary, third party, rot, loss of cash, loss of credit, impact of vehicles, can rant as grave as oxtail soup, and chat as gay as a Porto flippant, is unhesitant in his unionism, and yet a bigoted nationalist. Sylvia Cola is shy of him. Matros and Hawsons knows the joke, shows the sinews of peace in his Chester wars. Fee-fo hum, 939 years of copyhold, is our days open for polemy polity's sake when he's not sometimes closed for the love of Janus. Sucks life's elixir from the petty pickles of the Jewess, and rules and sulks if any popeling runs down the Huguenots. Boomaport, Wallesley, Obermeerschall Blaucher, and Supercharger, Monsieur de Crow, Mr. Mudson, Master Gardener, to one he's just paunch and Judex, to another full of beans and brehons, hallucination, coachman, ectoplasm. Passed for Baba Black Sheep till he grew white woo-woo woolly, was dramatized by Macmilligan's daughter, and put to music by one shoebard. All Fitzpatrick's in his emirate remember him, the boys of Wetford hail him Babu, indanified himself with borrowed tribute, and was shanked publicly to Brigstole, was given the light and dray orkshafts, and entomoled in 3 plexes. His likeness is in terracoit, and he giveth rest to the rainbowed. Liberty, frothiernity, and quality. His reverse makes a virtue of necessity, while his obverse mars a mother by invention. Best killed his gun well, and he's the second imperial. Untie points, unhook tenters, and he's lath and plaster. Calls upon all thing when he fails to appeal to each of those. Basidins, Ardri, Kong Sema, Rex Regularum, stood into the mouth, then backed broadside on ball a cleaver, either Eldorado or ultimate Thull, a kraal of foul feud fires, a crawl of 5 pubs, laid out lashings of laveries to hunt down his family ancestors, and then pled double trouble or quick quits to hush the buckers up, threw peblets for luck over one sodden shoulder, and dragoon pioplades armed to their teeth. Pept as Gordio Gambrinus, grim as Potter the Grave, ace of hearts, deuce of damimons, trouble of clubs, fear of spades, combrum, twy nicey nurses for a drum, but 3 to 1 tips the scale, reeled the title roll opposite a brace of girdles in silver on the screen, but was sequenced from the set at Crookback by the even more titulars Rick, Dave, and Barry. He can get on as early as the 22nd of Mars, but occasionally he doesn't come off before Virgin Tinkwing Swink Germinal. His Indian name is Hapapusiza Bibjibwe, and his number in Arithmosophie is the stars of the plough. Took weapon in the province of the pike, and let fling his line on Eelwick. Moves in vicious cycles, yet remews the same. The drain rats bless his offals, while the park birds curse his floodlights. Portobello, Equadocta, Theracocta Percorello. He pours into the soft-clad Shelbourne the hard cash earned in Watling Street. His birth proved accidental shows his death its grave mistake. Brought us giant ivy, but the land of Yonkers, and be with her Apostolopolis with the gale of his gall. While satisfied that soft, youthful, bright, matchless girls should bosom into fine, silk-clad, joyous, blooming young women, is not so pleased that heavy, swearsome, strong-smelling, irregular-shaped men should blot out active, handsome, well-formed, frank-eyed boys. Herald Harry Fair, aloft the wheat. Husband your aunt and endow your nepos. Hearken but hush it, screen him and see. Time is an archbishopric, time was a tradesman's entrance. Beckburn brooked with wrath, scale scarred by scow. His rainfall is a couple of knee-highs, while his minced grass temperature marked 3 in the shade. Is the melting point of snow in the bubbling place of alcohol. Has a tussle with the trolls and then does himself justice. Hinted at in the eschatological chapters of Humphrey's Justice of the JPs, and hunted for by Theban recensors who sniff there's something behind the bug of the deaf. The king was in his corner wall, milking Mark so merry. The queen was steep in amber, feeling fain and furry. The maids was midst the hawthorns, shoring up their holes. Out pimps the backguards, pump, and pump gun they goes. To all his foretellers he reared a stone, and for all his come-theres he planted a tree. 40 acres, 60 miles, white stripe, red stripe, washes his fleet in Annaker water. Whoa, Mr. Porter, so what shall he do? For he wanted to sit for Pimlico, but they've caught him to stand for Sue. Dutch Lord, overawes us. Head mound, king and martyr, done stung in the yeast. Peter le Poor in Petrin, Barth the Great by the exchange. He hastens towards dame's troth, and wedding hand like the Prince of Orange. And Nassau, while he has Trinity left behind him, like bowl beggar Bill the Bostonley. Brow of a hazelwood, pool in the dark. Changes Blowicks into bullocks, and a well of Artesia into a bird of Arabia. The handwriting on his face wall, the cryptoconchoid siphonostomata in his exprusions. His birth spot lies beyond the herospont, and burial plot in the pleasant little field. In the illest kiosk on the peninsula, and the unguist hostel in St. Scholarland. Walked many hundreds and many score miles of streets, and lit thousands in one night lights in hectares of windows. His great wild cloak lies on 15 acres, and his little white horse decks by dozens our doors. Oh, sorrow the sail, and woe the rudder that were set for Mary Quayle. For Mary Key. His sons the Huns, his daughters the Tartars, are plenty here today, who repost from his burst the bumboats of Ostenton, and falchion each flash down Sinduck in the deep. A personal problem, a locative enigma, a bright one, vehicule of arcanization in the field, lying chap, flood supplier of seliculation through eblanes, a part of the whole as a port for a whale. Dear Hewitt Costello, equerry, we're daylighted with our outing and are looking backwards to unearly summers. From rhododendrons is above the seed fruit level and outside the leguminiferous zone. When older links lock older hearts, then he'll resemble she. Can be built with glue and clippings, scrawled or voided on a buttress. The Night Express sings his story, the song of sparrow notes on his stave of wires. He crawls with lice, he swarms with saggarts, is as quiet as a mersk, but can be as noisy as a synagogue. Was Dilmund when his date was palmy, and Mudland when his nut was cracked. Suck up the cease, lep loud at ease, one lip on his lap and one cushion his crease. His porter has a mighty grasp, and his backter's the bone of broad white. As far as wind rise and rain eats and sun turns and water bounds, he is exalted and depressed, assembled and asundered. Go away, we are deluded. Come back, we are disghosted. Board the Astrov, leapt the Inferus, swam the Mabul, and floor the Moil. Like fat, like tallow, of greasefulness, yea, of dripping greasefulness. Did not say to the old, did not say to the score buttock. He has found a house, Uru, a house he has founded, to which he has assigned its fate. Bears a rav endurant on a field duive. Rose the halo off his varlet when he appeared to his she-cook. As haycock, emmet, boro, toro, ostrich, mangy and skunk. Press the beer of old age out of the nettles of rashness. Put a roof on the lodge for him, and a coke in his pot pro homo. Was dappifer than Panzer Censor, than Hortifex Magnus. The topes that tippled on him, the types that toppled off him. Still starts our hares, yet gates our goat. Pocket boat, Gatman, Gunrun. The light of other days, dire, dreary darkness. Our awful dad, Timur of Tartar, puzzling, startling, shocking, nay, perturbing, when puffing from King's brogue to new customs, doffing the gibbous off him to every breach of all size, with pa's new heft and papa's new helve, he's papa's old cutlass, papa left us. When young-headed old-shouldered and middlish neck aged about, caller herring every daily, turgid tarpon overnight. See Lorion the comilion, that changed endocrine history by loaving his loaf with 40 bannocks. She drove him dave till he driv her blind up. The pigeons, doves be perching all over him one day on Bowes Bridge, and the ravens dove be pitching their dark nets after him the next night behind Konigstein's arbour. Trumph of the rep, comph of the priv, prosp of the pub. His head would it's ideal if his feet are bally clay. He crashed in the hollow of the park, trees down, as he soared in the vacuum of the phoenix. Stones up, looks like a Mortain bolter and sounds like a rude word. The mountain view, some lumen pale round a lamp of sucker in boiling water. 3 shots of putty at up saddle, made up to Miss McCormick nee LaCarthy, who made off with Darley Dermod, swank and swarthy, once diamond cut garnet, now damn it cuts grony. You might find him at the Florence, but watch hour for him in Wynn's Hotel. There's his bow, and where's his liquor, and here lays his big quiet hearse. Teep. Swed Albioni, likeliest villain of the place. Henry Canterell, Cochrane Egotisters Limited. We take our tays and freeze our fleas round Saturn's mounted foot. Build the Lund's kirk and destroy the church's land. Who guess his title grabs his deeds. Fletch and pretties, fashion chaps. Artful Duke of Wilsley, Hogglebelly's funeral, cook cattycack, heard in camera and excruciated. Boone when with benches billeted, ban if buckshot back shattered, heaven-gendered, chaos-fated, earth-born. His father presumptively ploughed it deep one on overtime, and his mother, as all events, must have travailed her fair share. A footprints on the magazine, hetman unwashed by searing sand, honorary captain of the extemporized fire brigade, reported to be friendly with the police. The door is still open. The old stock collar is coming back, not forgetting the time you laughed at Elder Charterhouse's duck white pants and the way you said the whole township can see his hairy legs. By stealth of a curse, her auburn tress abaft his nape she hung. When his kettle became a hearthscudus, our thorstyites set their lymphy amphire. His year letter concocted by master hands of essays. His hallmark imposed by the standard of wrought plate. A pair of pectorals and a triple screen to get a wind up. Lights his pipe with a rosin tree, and hires a horse to haul his shoes. Cures slavey scurvy, breaks baron's boils. Called to sell Polosh, and was found later in a bedroom. Has his seat of justice, his house of mercy, his corn a copious, and his stacks awry. Prospector, he had a rucksacked retrospector. He holds the hope and stake, won the freedom of New York for the minds of Yugoslaves, acts active, peddles in passivism, and is a gorgon of self-religiousness, pours a laugh's worth of his ill formation over a larm's worth of salt. Half heard the single maiden speech, La Belle, spun to her grand mount, and hold a lifetime by his ain fireside, wondering was it Hebrew set to himmelstones, or the quicksilver song of quaternions. His troubles may be over, but his doubles have still to come. The lobster pot that crabbed our keel, the garden pet that spoiled our squeezed peas. He stands in a lovely park, sea is not far. Importunate towns of X, Y, and Z are easily overreached. Is an excrescence to civilized humanity, and but a wart on Europe. Wanna made sing signs to sound sense, and yet he wanna get all his flesh new made mots truly plural and plausible. Has excessively large rings, and is uncustomarily perfumed. Lost his ath he listeth, and Clea withbeaveth Themis. Is a prince of the Fingalian in a hibernaiad of holies. Has a Hodge to weary him, and a Frenchie to curry him, and a Brabantson fort his beater, and a Fritz at his switch. Was waylaid of a Parker, and beshotten by a Buckley. Kicks lintels when he's copy, and casts Jacob arrowroots. Dime after dime to poor waif strays on the parish. Reads the chimes of H.C. Anderson all the weeks of his evening, and the crimes of Yvonne the Torrible every strong day morn. Soaps you soft to your face, and slaps himself when he's baddened. Owns the bulgiest bung barrel that ever was tip-tapped in the privacy of the Mullingar Inn. Was born with a new silver tongue in his mouth, and went round the coast of Ireland with his lift hand to the scene. Raised but 2 fingers, and yet smelt it would day, for whom it is easier to found a sea in Eblina than for I or you to find a double tie in Dempster's damp. To live with whom is a life mayor, and to know whom a liberal education, was dipped in hoily olives, and christened in Saint O'Toole's. Hears cricket on the earth, but annoys the life out of predicants. Still turns a dirk's ear of Darius to the now thoroughly infuriated one of God, made man with juts that jerk and minted money mong many, likes a six a cup pudding, and he's come home sweet home, has come through all the eras of live's adventures, from moonshine and champagne down to clouts and bottled porter. Woolen the first, Heinrich the oath, George the second, Richard the third. If a mandrake shriek to convultures at last surviving his birth, the wabe duck will wail bitterly over the rotter's resurrection. Loses weight in the moon night, but gird her by the sundawn. With one touch of nature set the veiled world agrin, and went within a sheet of tissue paper of the option of 3 jails. Who could see at one blick a salmon taken with the lance, hunters pursuing a doe, a swallow ship in full sail, a white robe lifting a host, faced flappery like old King Canute, and turned his back like Cincinnatus, is a far, far the and more far, and a whore father, naked bucker in villas old as new. Squats a quart and cracks a quaint when it's flagging in town and on haven. Blows whiskery around his summit, but states stout upon his footles. Stutters for he falls and goes mad entirely when he's waked. Is Tim to the pearly morn and Tom to the morning night. And then he had the best bun-baked Briggs in bold Babylon. For his pitching plays he'd be lost for the want of his wan wobbling wall. Answer, Finn MacCool.
Two. Does your mutter know your mic?
Answer, when I turn me optics from such urban prospects, till my filial's bosom doth behold with pride that pontificator and circumvallator, with his damned knight garrulous slipped by his side, and alive the lisp of her, 'twould Grig mountains whisper her, and the bergs of Iceland melt in waves of fire, and her spoon me spondies, and her dirker me ondies, make the ragiest ocean kneel and quaff a lyre. If Dan's Dane, Anne's dirty. If he's plain, she's purty. If he's fain, she's flirty, with her all-burnt streams and her coy cajoleries and her dabbling drolleries, for to rouse his rudder up or to drench his dreams. If hot Hammurabi or cold Ecclesiastes could espy her pranklings, they'd burst bounds again, and renounce their ruings, and denounce their doings, for river, and ifer, and a night. Amen. 3. Which title is the true-to-type motto in lieu for that tick for a tick, thatchment painted wit, with one darkness, where a snake is under clover, and birds a prowl, or in the rookeries, and a Magda went to Monkeshus, and the river pard was spotted, which is not witchcraft war art, nor Austerholm Dreischluss, not Haroldsby Grosser, not Varenken Vintner, not houseboats and hive, not Knox at the bell, not O'Phoenix Colprince, not one square Rumiak, not Eblon Downs, not Letiser Lemieux, not Benjamin's Lee, not Tholomew's Waddington, not Antwerp, not Musca, not Corrie's, not Ware's, not the Arch, not the Smog, not the Dutch House, not the Over, nothing grand, nothing splendid, grahat or split, neither erit est erit,
nor non mihi sed lucifero? Non mihi sed lucifero? Answer. Thine obesity, O civilian, hits the felicitude of our orb. 4. What Irish capital city, O dea, of 2 syllables and 6 letters, with a Celtic origin and a numinous end, adust, O dust, can boast of having A, the most extensive public park in the world, B, the most expensive brewing industry in the world, C, the most expansive peopling thoroughfare in the world, D, the most philohypic theobibus population in the world, and harmonize your abeceded responses. Answer. A. Belfast. And when you'll hear the gold hammers of my heart, my flaxy loss, bing-banging again the ribs of yet resistance, and the tender bolts of my rivets working to your distraction, ye'll be shivering with all your dinful sobs when we'll go riding a copa curly, you with your orange garland, and me with my canny cordial, down the grease ways of rollicking into the waters of wetted life. B. Bork. And sure, where can you have such a good chimes anywhere, and leave you as on mash and how 'tis, I would be engaging you with my plovery soft accents, and descanting up over the scene beyonder me of your loose vines in their hairafall, with them 2 loving loaves braceleting the slims of your ankles, and your mouth's flower rose, and sinking after the soapstone of silvery speech. C. Nublid. Isha, why wouldn't we be happy, Avourneen? On the mill's money he'll soon be leaving you, as soon as I've my own Brookline Georgian mansion's lawn to recruit upon by Dr. Cheek's special orders, and my copper's pan full of soybeans and Irish in my east hand, and a James Gate in my west. After all the arrears and erribus of comparative and bottled history, and your good self churning over the new-leaved butter, more power to you, the choicest and the cheapest from Atlanta to Orkney, while I'll be drowsing in the garden. D. Dalway. I hooked my thoroughgoing trotty the first down Spanish place. Mayo I make tomb I take, Sligo sleek, but Galway's grace. Holy eel and sainted salmon, chucking chob and ducking dace. Wrought iron's not your equal, says she, lepping half the lane. A, B, C, D, a bell on shoud, o steep bell. En bilgo masplon prit mos people, shand praise gone ness our faced, mon neeple. Our prame shan deepen, pay name moi fee pence, moi nigh non equal. 5. Wad slags of a laugh lad with rettin smutty flasks, empatout old mans, milk vicious gate, scare off Jack and Jills fra tittle landing, smooth pick waste papish pastures, insides man, outsiders angel, spring dirted water around village, muses, tarbaggin, and Swedes, plain general kept, loud and on the kirk peal, foot treats given to Malafides, outshriek help high elf, nor his hair efter boglars. Might underhold 3 barnets, puts polished crotty bottles, night coover all fire glims,
serves time till bass, grindstone his knives is, fullest boarded, lewd man of the method of godliness. Perchance he knows and than sits in the spore wagon. XYCA on ZWCU, doorsteps limited, or bay windows bros, swabber preferred, Walther Clousetters and Sons, with the H.E. Chimneys Company, to not screeve will on advices, be bacon or stable hand, must be gripe full standingly Irers Longurge, Joblander, or North Quain bigger preferred, all duties, kind rights, family feud, outings fived, may get ernst, no get combitch, profusional drink lords to please abstain. His father low soundig, in moon mind pershoon, but a corner man, nay, that must he, isn't? Answer. Poor old Joe. 6. What means the saloon slogan, summon in the house sweep Dinah? Answer. Tuck. Gallery bit of the sales of cloth no end, and I have to be waxed the bringing in all the clob of the porks to us. How I thought I knew his stain on the flour, if me ask and could speak, and he called by me midden name, Tick. I am your honeysucker, with the bay, and who brook the dandeliast, and who seen the black cullen jam, for Tomor has big picnic. I hope it'll pour praise the climate. Of all Ireland I heard the grackles, and I skimming the crock on all your sandwiches, fippence per leg per drake. Tuck. And who ate the last of the goose bellies that was maudling from measlest years, and who left that there, and who put that here, and who let the Kilkenny stale the chump tech? And who was it, you was it, prop the pot in the yard, and what in the name of St. Luke are you rubbing the side of the floor of the lobby with? Shite! Will you have a plateful? Tack. 7. Who are the component partners of our society? Societate, the door boy, the cleaner, the soldier, the crook, the squeezer, the lounger, the kermin, the tourabout, the mushroom sniffer, the bleak-a-blue tramp, the fun-pouther plother, the Christy man's boxer, from the praise Sallies and Donnybrook prater, and Roebuck's Campos, and the age around town, and Crumglen's grassy, but Kimmage's champ, and Ashtown fields, and Cabra fields, and Finglas fields, and Santry fields, and the fields of Raheny, and the Fales, and Bowdoigle to them who are latecomers all the years round by anticipation, are the porters of the passions in virtue of retro-ratiocination, and, contrabutting their confligent controversies of differentiation, unify their voxes in a vote of vaticination, who crunch the crusts of comfort due to depredation, drain the mead from misery to incur intoxication, condone every evil by practical justification, and condemn any good to its own gratification, who are ruled, roped, duped, and driven by those numen daemons, the fee-keepers at their laws, nightly consternation, fortnightly fornication, monthly misericordation, and omniannual recreation, Doyles when they deliberate, but Sullivans when they are swordsed. Matey, Teddy, Simon, Jorn, Peter, Andy, Barty, Philly, Jamesy Moore, and Tom, Matt and Jakes McCarthy? Answer. The Morpheos. 8. And how were your Maggies? Answer. They were loving. They love laughing. They laugh weeping. They weep smelling. They smell smiling. They smile hating. They hate thinking. They think feeling. They feel tempting. They tempt daring. They dare waiting. They wait taking. They take thanking. They thank seeking. As born forlorn in lore of love to live and wife by wile and rile by rule of ruse, read the rose and hose hold home. Yet cometh elope year coaching for sweet peck at my heart picks one man more. 9. Now to be on anew and basking again in the panorama of all floors of speech, if a human being duly fatigued by his deity in the sooty, having plenty oft time on his gouty hands, and vacance of space at his sleepish feet, and as hapless behind the dreams of accuracy as any Camelot prince of Dinmurk, were at this actual future preternating instant in the states of suspensive examination, accorded throughout the eye of a noodle, with an ear-sighted view of old Hopenhaven, with all the ingredient and egredient whites and ways to which in the curse of his persistence the course of his Tory will had been having recourses. The reverberation of not-cracking awls, the reconjugation of no-debinding eyes, the redissolucingness of mind-motored ease, and the thereby hang of the whole of it, could such a nun, whiles even led calm silencers to calmly with hers, until in tempestuous knocks should catch the Gallicry and spot Lucan's dawn. By hold at ones what is main and why 'tis twain, and how one once meets melts in t'other once pointings, the sap rising, the falls falling, the nim now nihilant round the girly head so becoming, the restless in the womb, all the rivals to all see, shake again, oh disaster, shake a loose, ah-ho starring, but Heng's got a bit of horse's nose, and Jeff's got the signs of ham round his mouth, and the bow that spun the beautiful pales as it paws, what rose arood and orageous grows gelb and green. Blue out of the end of it, violets died, then what would that fargazer seem self to seem seeming of Dimita? Answer. A kaleidoscope. 10. What bitters love but yearning? What sour love much but a brief burning, till she that draws doth smoke return? Answer. I know, Pipette, of course, dear, but listen, precious. Thanks, pet, those are lovely, Pitounette, delicious. But mind the wind, sweet. What exquisite hands you have, you angel. If you didn't gnaw your nails, isn't it a wonder you're not ashamed of me, you pig, you perfect little pigaline? I'll nudge you in a minute. I bet you used her best Persian smear off her vanity table to make them look so rose-top, glow-stop, no-stop. I know her. Slight me, would she, for every got I care. 3 creamings a day, the first during her shower, and wipe off with tissue. Then after clean-up, and of course before retiring. Be me sure, when I think of that espos of a Clan Carberry, the food brawler of the Associationist Party, with his black-lettered chest. Hello, Prendergast. That you, Innkeeper? And all his 14 other full black maulers, or hurling stars, or whatever the dagos they are, baiting at my Lord Ornery's, just because they want the egg and spoon there so overly provincial at Bordeaux. My Eilish assent he seed makes his admiration. He is seeking an opening, and means to be first with me as his belle alliance. And do must nu play zealoso, so do todas. Such is Spanish. Stoop a little closer, fials. Delightsome simply, like Jolio and Romeo. I haven't felt so Turkish for ages and ages. Minds me of Caseous, the chocolate with a soul. Extraordinary. Why, what are they all, the mucky lot of them only? Shit. I wouldn't pay 3 hairpins for them. Pept. That's right. Hold it steady. Leg me pull. Pooh. Come back to Erin. Pooh. What are you nudging for? No, I just thought you were... Listen, loveliest. Of course it was too kind of you, miser, to remember my sighs and shockings, but often expressed wish when you were wandering about my trossiers, and before I forget it, don't forget, in your extensions to my personality, when knotting my remembrance tie, show weak will be trotting back, and the red heels at the end of the moon. But look what the fool bought cabbage head and I, as I shall answer to gracious heaven. I'll always and always remind of snappy new garters, me being always the one for charms, with my very best and proud, and gloving if he was to be vermilion miles my youth to live on. The rubber end Mr. Polkinstone. The Quonian fleshmonger whom Mother Brown solicited me for unlawful converse with her mug of October, a pats on it, creaking around on his old shanks axle like a crusty old cornquake. Ermine, waterwag, terrier, blazer. I'm fine, thanks ever. Ha! Oh, mind you poo tickly. Shall I poo him in Momo? Mum. Funny spot to have a fingy. I'm terribly sorry, I swear to you, I am. May you never see me in my birthday pelt seen so tutu, and that her blanches manges may rot leprous off her, whatever winking Maggies, I'll bet by your cut you go flirting after, with all the glass on her, and the jumps in her stoneware. Ha! I suspected she was. Sink her. May they fire her for a barren ewe. So she says, "Tay for tea." Well, I sayeth, angst so much, and desired she might not take it amiss if I esteemed her but an odd. If I did ate tough turf, I'm not a missy. Of course I know, Pettist, you're so learningful and considerate in yourself, so friend of vegetables, you long cold cat, you. Please by a quiester to meek my acquaintance, codling snakelet, iciclist. My diaper has more life to it. Who drowned you in drears, man? Or are you pale ale with ink? Did a weep get past the gates of your pride? My tread on the clover, sweetness? Yes, the buttercups told me, hug me, damn it all, and I'll kiss you back to life, my peachest. I mean to make you suffer, medlar, and I don't care this fig for contempt of courting. That I chid you, sweet sir, you know I'm tender by my eye. Can't you read by dazzling ones through me true? Bite my laughters, drink my tears, pour into me volumes, spell me stark and spill me swooning. I just don't care what my thwarters think. Transname me loveliness now and hear me for all times. I'd risk a policeman passing by McGrath, or even that beggar of a boots at the post. The flame? Oh, pardon. That was what? Ah, did you speak, stuff? More poetries from Shakespeare's with glee choral music, or ejaculation from the garden of the soul, of I believe in the immoralities. Oh, you mean the strangle for love, and the survival of the prettiest. Yep, we open hap causeries in the home. And once upon a week I improve on myself. I'm so keen on that new free woman with novel inside. I'm always as tickled as can be over a man in a surplice by the lady who pays the rates. But I'm as pie as is possible. Let's root out Brimstoker and give him the thrall of our lives. It's Dracula's night out. For creep's sake, don't make a flush. Draw the shades, curfew. And I'll beat any summer monk to love. Holy bog, how my highness would jump to make you flame your have-a-bannon in two when I'd run my burning torchlight through to adore me there and then cease to be. Whatever for, blossoms? Your hair, me jig, if you had one. I am laughing with you. No, lovingest, I'm not so dying to take my rise out of you, adored. Not in the very least. True as God made my mamma, hip length, modesty caught mother. I'm only because the riceness. I'm only any girl. You lovely fellow of my dreams, and because old Sumbooby is not around about, my trysting of the tulipies, like that puff pape bucking daverin a soiling us behinds. What a nerve! He thinks that's what the vespry's for. How vain's that hope in cleric's heart, who still pursues the adulterous art. Cocksure that rusty gown of his will make fair Sue forget his phiz. Tame Schwipt, blessed Marguerite bosses, I hope they threw away the mold, or else we'll have Ballshausers and sour dapplers with their medical associations all over the place. But hold hard till I've got my latchkey vote, and I'll teach him when to wear what woman cowhers. On account of the gloss of the glycine has a boob robbies is a boobel. And because, you pluckless lankaloot, I hate the very thought of you, and because, dearling, of course, adorest, I was always meant for an engineer from the French college to be musband, nom d'engine. When we do in contract with Encho Tencho Salver, when you are married to reading and writing, which please business now won't be long, for he's so loopy on me, and I'm so leapy like since the day he carried me from the boat, my saviour of Eros, to the beach, and I left on his shoulder one fair hair to guide hand in mine to its softness. Ever so sorry, I beg your pardon. I was listening to every treasuried word I said fell from my dear mote's tongue. Otherwise, how could I see what you were thinking of, our granny? Only I wondered if I threw out my shaving water. Anyway, here's my arm, pulleth neck, gracefully yours. Move your mouth toward mine, more, preciousest, more on more. To please me, treasure, don't be I'm not going to shh, nothing, a cree somewhere. Bye, I'm fly. Here, Pippi, under the limes. You know, big tree are all against gravestone. They hiss a tenancy, gurned on mad. So chip, chirp, sigolo, for the log of Mago. The little pastor, I go you before, so. And you're at my apron stage, shy as him, dovey. Must forget there's an audience. I have been lost, angel, Cuddle ye, devil ye, it's our toot-a-toot. Hear, hear, sensation. Let them, their whole 4 courtships. Let them, Big Ball and his boozers 11 makes 12 territorials. The old sots hold that he wants wide streets to commission their nonsense in. At the Mitchell versus Nichols, Ave Selve Aquivales, and my waiting 20 class birds sitting on their stiles. Let me finger the year arithmetic. You'll see I'm self-taught. They're all of them out to please. Wait, in the name of, and all the holly, and some the missile, and it Saint Ives, who's to him? There's Ada, Betzelia, Delia, ain't afraid to Gilda, Hilda, I to Jess, Catty, Low. They make me cough as sure as I read them. Mine a nippy, opsy, Paul. Queenie, Ruth, Saucy, Trix, Una, Vela, Wanda, Senia, Ival, Zuma, Phoebe, Thelma, and me. The reformatory boys is jailing in for the church, so we've all come feast like grouse-suppers and caught lip solution from anti-providence under penances from murderous sins. When their bride was married, all my bells began to ting. A ring, a rose, a ring, then everyone will hear of it. Whoso's wishes is the farther to my thoughts. But I'll plant them a poser for their nomenclature. When they're out with their day nurse doing chaperon mar, bright pigeons all over the world will fly with my mistletoe message round their love ribbon necks, and the crumb of my cake for each chasta dieva. We keeps all in sundry papers, in the moorlight. Oh, my darling, no, I swear to you by Phibsborough, Churchdome, and St. Andre's undershift, by all I hold secret from my world and in my underworld of nighties and naughties and all the other wonder worlds. Close your not must look. Now open, pet, your lips, pipette, like I used my sweet-parted lipsabus with Dan Holohan, of proof of law, of facetious memory, taught me after the flannel dance with the proof of love. Up Smock Alley, the first night he smelled powder, and I coloured beneath my fan. Pipetta mia, when you learned me the linguo to melt. Oh, Wham would have ears like ours, the black-haired. Do you like that, silenzioso? Are you enjoying this same little me, my life, my love? Why do you like my wisping? Is it not divinely delusious? But in it buffer you. Missy, tell me till my thrill me comes. I will not break the seal. I am enjoying it still, I swear I am. Why do you prefer it's in these dark nets? If I may ask, my sweetiekins. Shh. Long ears is flying. No, sweetest. Why would that annoy me? But don't. You want to be slapped. Well, slapped for that. Your delighted lips, love, be careful. Mind my duvetine dress above all. It's golded Sylvie, the newest sex tones with princess effect. For Rutland's blues got out of passion. So, my precious. Oh, I can see the cost share. Don't tell me why the boys in Sheep's Lane knows that. If I sell whose, dears? Was I sold here, tears? You mean those conversation lozenges? How awful! The bold shame of me! I wouldn't, chickens, not for all the Juliets in the twinkly way. I could snap them when I see them winking at me in bed. I did so, my intended, or was going to, or thinking of. Shh. Don't start like that, you wretch. I thought ye knew all and more, ye author to explique to ones the significat of their ex-systems with their new nivulum lead. It's only another queer fish or other in Brinbro's damned old treacherous river again. Goth the wisheth the Goths bless us and spare her. The gibbos rest from the basso. Excuse me for swearing, love. I swear to the Saracens on their thrones of Oyen. I didn't mean to by this Alpine armlet. Did you really never, in all our Cantalang lives, speak close to a girl's before? No, not even to the chambermaid? How marvellous! Oh, of course I believe you, my own dear doting Leist. Why, you tell me, as I'd live to, oh, I'd love to, Liss, I must wish, never that ever or I can remember drear streaming faces, you may go through me. Never in all my whole white life of my matchless impair, or ever for bitter be the fruct of this hour. With my whiteness I thee woo, and bind my silk breasts, I thee bound. Always amory, amor, and more, till always thou lovest. Shh, so long as the locksmith laughs. (11) I met you on the binge a poor arch assailed from ailing, when the tune of his tremble shook Shimeon's shin, while his contrary raged in the week of his wailing, like a rugalint poogalint lion o' lin. If he maundered in misliness, plaining his plight, or played fox and lice, pricking and dropping hips' teeth, or wringing his handcuffs for peace, the blind blighter, playing deaf in dome nostrums, for tome thinks the eath. If he wept while he leapt and gafouled with a whimper, made cold blood a blue Monday and no bones without fletch, taking kiss, cake, or kick with a suck, sigh, or simper, a diffle to larn and a dibble to letch. If the fain shinner pegged you to shave his immartial, wee skill mustard show with his ooh, hoo, doo, doo, broking wind that to whiles woe made sin he was partial. We don't think, Jones, we'd care to this evening. Would you? Answer: No, blank ye. So you think I have impulsivism. Did they tell you I am of the 46th? And I suppose you heard I had a wag on my ears? And I suppose they told you too that my role of life is not natural? But before proceeding to conclusively confute this begging question, in it would be far fitter for you, if you dare, to hesitate to consult with, and consequentially attempt at my disposal of the same dime cash problem elsewhere, naturalistically, of course, from the blink point of so eminent a spatialist. From it you will hear notice shot upon my for the first remarking you that the sophology of Bitchson, while driven as under by a purely dime urge, is not without his cash characteristics, borrowed for its nonce ends from the fiery good mother Misfortune, who the last time we had the pleasure we have had our little recherche brush with, what shot? And as I further could have told you as brisk as your DBC behavioristically, Paillette with a coat of homoid icing, which is in reality only a done by chance ridiculization of the who and where's hairs theorics of Weinstein. To put it all the more plumsily, the speech form is a mere surrogate, whilst the quality and tality, I shall explex what you ought to mean by this, with its proper when and where and why and how in the subsequent sentence, are alternativo-mentally Harrogate and Arrogate, as the gates may be.
Talus is a word often abused by many passums. I am working out a quantum theory about it, for it is really most tantamusing state of affairs. A passum may frequent you to say, "Have you been seeing much of Talus, and Talus those times," optimately meaning, "Will you put up at 3 of Irish?" Or a lady-eater may perhaps have casualized as you temp-told her à la sourdine, "Of your plates is Talus de Talus, the sword-swallower, who is on the criterium the same Talus von Talus, the pen-crusher, no funk you, who runs his dually mile." Or this is a perhaps cleaner example. At a recent post-vortex piece in fustigation of a determinized case of chronic spinosis, an extension lecturer on the ague, who out of matter of form was trying his Caesars, Doctor's het Ubelieft, borrowed the question, "Why switch Suchman's Talus Qualis?" To whom, as a fatter of Macht, Dr. Gedonsky of stout girth, who was wiping his whistle, tersely retorted, "Why, thou beest one zoom of a whirl. Talus and Talus originally mean the same thing. It's Qualis." Professor Lowley Brewer, though as I shall promptly prove his whole account of the Sennacherib, as distinct from the Shalmaneser, sanitational reforms of, and the Mr. Skeckles and Dr. Hyde's problem, in the same connection differs toto coelo from the fruit of my own investigations. Though the reason I went to Jericho must remain for certain reasons a political secret, especially as I shall shortly be wanted in Coventry, I congratulate myself for the same and other reasons, as being again hopelessly vitiated by what I have now resolved to call the dime and cash diamond fallacy. In his talked-off confession, which recently met with such leonine uproar on its escape after its confinement, "Why am I not born like a gentleman? Why am I not speakable about my own eatables?" Fagin Baumblatt father, Budapest, 5688 a.m. Wholeheartedly takes off his gabber coat and wig, honest drafty fellow, in his public interest, to make us see how, though, as he says, by us will, the inception and the descent and the end swell of man is temporarily wrapped in obscenity, looking through at these accidents with the phariscope of television. This nightlife instrument needs still some subtractional betterment in the readjustment of the more refrangible angles to the squeals of his hypothesis on the outer tin sides. I can easily believe heartily in my own most spacious immensity as my own house in microbemos cosm, when I am reassured by ratio that the cube of my volumes is to the surfaces of their subjects as the sphericity of these globes. I am pressing for a parliamentary motion this term which, under my guidance, would establish the deleteriousness of decorousness in the morbidization of the modern man-about woman type, is to the veracity of fair Nelly's vacuum. I need not anthropologize for any intentional. I must here correct all that school of Neo-Italian or Paleo-Parisian schola of tinkers and spanglers who say I'm wrong, poor Siquio. Out of Revulsion from Roman Titus I want to be. Downtrodden on my foes, Professor Levi Brulo, FD of Sexawayman Eitelnacki, finds, from experiments made by Hind with Nuremberg eggs on the one hands and the watches conundrum up in the oven, though it is ostensibly a case of Catsrebolians cooling the popes back, because the number of square faiths in weekly circulation will not be appreciably augmented by the Northers' logging of my cupular clods. What the romantic in rags pines after, like all Tom Tompions haunting crevices for a deadbeat escapement, and what had the importunes are mittelide for in a Cornish with the more to Darthella tar edition, is the poorest common and guardian waste of time. His ever-present toes are always in retaliation out through his overpassed boots. Hear him squawk. Take heed to that loose swallower, how he bolo the bat. Tyroatore. When Moloch won the couple of colds, when we were stripping in number 3, I would like the neat drop that would malt in my mouth, but I fail to see when I am purposely refraining from expounding the obvious fallacy as to the specific gravitates of the two deglutables implied, nor to the lapsus lequo associated with the royal gorge through students of mixed hydrostatics and pneumodipsics will after some difficulties grapple away with my maenungs. Murd in a lore, as old Marbiller's FDPH. Doctor's showings. The plea, if he pleads, is all passion ravaged on a miliodiontic scale, since his man's when is no other man's quandor, mine, thank you, while, for aught I care for the contrary, the all is where in love as war and the plain where me art sore, your easy rouse the thunder from, and where I cling true, 'tis there I climb tree, and where innocent looks best, pick, there's holly in his ives. As my explanations here are probably above your understandings, Lattle Brattons, though as augmentatively uncomparrisoned as Cadwan, Cadwallin, and Cadwalliner, I shall revert to a more expletive method which I frequently use when I have to ceremo with muttlecrass pupils. Imagine for my purpose that you are a squad of urchins, sniffy-nosed, gastling-necked, clothy-headed, tangled in your lacings, tingled in your pants, et cetera. And you, Bruno Nowlin, take your tongue out of your inkpot. And none of you knows Javanese. I will give all my easy free translation of the old fabulous parable. A la boy minor, take your head out of your satchel. Audi, Joe Peters, ex-Saudi fax. The Mookse and the Gripes. Gentes and laity men, full-stoppers and semi-colonials, hybrids and lubbards. Eins within a space, in a weary wide space, it was there woned a Mookse. The wonesomeness was out lonely. Archon sits like broady oval, and the Mookse he would a walking go. My hood, cries Anthony Romeo. So one grand summer evening, after a great morning and his good supper and gammon and spittish, having flabbled his eyes, pillowed his nostrils, vacticinated his ears, and palliumed his throats, he put on his impermeable, seized his impugnable, harped on his crown, and stepped out of his immobile derure albo. So-called, because it was chock full of master plasters, and had gorgeously let out gardens strewn with cascadas, pintacastecas, orthodox and currycombs, and set off from Lordstown a spasso to see how badness was badness in the weirdest of all pensible ways. As he set off with his father's sword, his lancia spezzata, he was girded on, and with that between his legs and his tarkeels, our once and only brag spear, he clanked to my clinking, from vetoes to treetop,
every inch of an immortal. He had not walked over a pentiad pair of parsecs from his asylum when at the turning of the shin-shone lantern near St. Bowery's without his walls, he came seconding to the 1/1/1th of the propices amnis limina permanent, upon the most unconsciously boggy-looking stream he ever locked his eyes with. Out of the collions it took a rise by daubing itself nine on. It looked little, and it smelt of brown, and it thought it narrows, and it talked so shallow. And as it rin, it ribbled like any lively pearl-teasy. My, me and me, little down dream, don't I love thee? And I declare, what was there on yonder bank of the stream that would be a river, parched on a limb of the olum, bolt downright, but the gripes? And no doubt he was fit to be dried, for why had he not been having the juice of his times? His pips had been neatly all drowned on him. His pulps were charging odors every older minute. He was quickly forgetting the dresser's disdain on the flyleaf of his fronds, and he was quietly forgiving the bailiff's distrain on to the bulk side of his coup de pompe. In all his specious heavings, as belived by Optimus Maximus, the Mookse had never seen his Dubville brooder on low so nigh to a pickle. Adrian, that was the Mookse now assumptium nom, stuck still fizz to the gripes in an accessit of orogination. But all Mookse must to mood end, much all our routes osterways or wasterways, in roaming run to room. Hixora stone singularly illid, and on hawk stone satyr sat hawk sate, which it filled quite preposterously, and by acclamatation to its fullest justatorium, and whereupon with his unfallible encyclicling upon his alloyable Deo Patriarch of the worst, and the athemist sprinkled pederect he always walked with, Deus dedit, cheek by jowl with his fisherman's blog, bellua triumphanis, his every way added to wallet's collectium. For yea longer he lived, yea broader he be taught of it, the fetter, the sum in the hall it cost. He looked the first and last Micah-like lakeness of Quartus the fifth, and Quintus the sixth, and Sixtus the seventh, giving all night sitting to Leo the 45th. Good appetite to us, Sir Mookse. How do you do it? Cheep the gripes in a wery wiggy Maudalinian voice, and the jackasses all within laughed and brayed for his intentions, for they knew their sly-toed Lowry now. I am rare room and blessed to see you, my dear master. Will you not perhaps tell me everything, if you are pleased, sanity? All about Olney and Lithiel, and also all in all about Owen and Lysias. Nay, think of it. O miserendicimus retemptor, gripes. Rats, followed the Mookse most telephorously, the consionator, and the sissimusses and the zazimusses in their Roman houses quailed to hear his tardy noise at all, for you cannot wake a silken nouse out of a horse oar. Blast yourself and your anathemy inferioribus. No, hang you for an animal rural. I am superbly in my supremus pontiff. Abase, you bawdy queens. Gather behind me, satraps. Rots! I am till infinity obliged with you, bowed the gripes, his wine having gone to his palpry head. I am still always having a wish on my extremities. By the watch, what is the time passe? Figure it, the pining peaver to a Mookse. Ask my index, mund my Achilles. Swell my orbulum, wash up my nace serene. Answered the Mookse rapidly by turning Clement, Urban, Eugenius, and Celestian in the foremost of good groggery humours. Quoth a whore, that is quite about what I came on my missions with my intentions, laudabiliter, to settle with you, Burrus. Let Thor be Orlog, let Pauline be Irene, let you be Breton, let me be Los Angeles. Now measure your length, now estimate my capacity. Well, Sour, is this space of our couple of hours two-dimensional for you, temporizer? Will you give you up? Como fuertit? Sancta patientia. You should have heard the voice of that answered him. Cola Vosselina. I was just thinking upon that Swiss Mookse, but for all the rhyme on my raisins, I can now make my submission. I cannot give you up, the gripes whimpered from nethermost of his wan hope. I shall spawn be will so thou to seize it. My tumble loudy bollocker is my own. My felicity is too fit in one stockinged, and my special in excelsis the bellowing things ab ove. But I will never be able to tell your unordiousness. Here he near lost his limb. Though my corked father was but a pseudo-waiter, whose cloak you wear. Incredible. Well, hear the inevitable. Your tempo sus increbro. Semper ex communicam biam sumers. Turgurius in new robe, or turquorius in ashes. Nova omi, my creature, believes. My building space in Leonine City is always to let to Leon like men. The Mookse in a most consistoris allocution, pontifically with immediate jurisdiction, constantly concluded. What a crammer for the shape-rocked gripes. And I regret to proclaim that it is out of my temporal to help you from being killed by inchies. What a thrust! As we first met each other, knew where so early. Poor little soul-sieved, sub-squashed gripes. I begin to feel contemption for him. My side, thank Decretos, it is as safe as Mother Hour's houses. He continued, and I can seem from my holy dome what it is to be holy sane. Union jock and be joined to Yock. Paris is to say, Crucicrux belongs to him who Parises himself. And there I must leave you subject for the pressing. I can prove that against you wait a momentum, mine good enemy, or Caspel's not our star. I bet you this dozen odd, the voluminous dozen odd. Quas primus, but 'tis bitter to compose my knowledge is fructose of tomes. Elevating to give paint to his blick, his jewelled peterec to his almisty ceiling, he lucky struck blued out of the few should be sentinels, a cloister of starabouts over maples, a Luciolis in Teresa Street, and a stop sign before Sophie Barrett. He gathered together the odds docents of his volumes, Greek, Latin, and Rosicrucian, onto the laps of his prolegs, into forth one scuppered, and sat about his wider proof. He proved it well who unearthed dry and drysic times, and vrieniamentusis, to the extinction of Necklaus altogether, Necklaus Alopsius having been at once Gripes pop-willed nimbum, by Nuclidius and Anaxagoras, and Mumpson and Thompson, and Erasmus, and by Amenius, by Anacletus the Jew, and by Malachi the Augurer, and by the Captain's collection, and after that, with Cheeky's Gelatine and Aldebrandy's Formalon, he reproves it herald together, when not in that order, sundering in some different order, alter 330 and 100 times by the binomial diorama, and the Penic walls, and the Inkelspill legends, and the roar, the rule of the hoop, and the blessings of experience, and the juice, the jugicance of Pontius Pilex, and all the mummy scripts in sick Bulk's junk room, and the chapters for the cunning of the chapters of the conning fox by tail. Wow, that Mookse with pre-procession, and with pro-procession duplicitly and deplacidly, with promulgating ipso facts and sad contras, this rascally Gripos, he had albust succeeded in monophysicking his ill subordinates. But as so foolish he had caught his base semenios, such tears to combuccinate upon the syllapses of his aspelauts, and the asporiusers of his hagion pneumix, to synerethetize with the breadchestviousness of his sweet ovular dulcos so farfary, the logger thuds of his secalaries were fond at variance with the synodals of his sompulium, and his babskis nepogrissimos got the hoof from his filioquus. After 1,000 years, O gripes, con me sheepskins, Yow will be blind to the world, and skade Mookse the pious. After 1,000 years, answered Gripes the Gregory, be the goat of Mahomet, yours may be still, O Mookse, more bot-haired. Us shall be chosen as the first of the last by the electress of Valhallow, observed the Mookse nobly. For par the unicum of Elilijax, us am in our stabulary. And what Ruby and Roby fall for, bliss him. The pills, the nasal wash, Yardleys, the army man cut, as British as bond strict, and as straight cut as when the broken-arched traveller from New Zealand. We, confused the gripe simply, shall not even be the last of the first. We hope, when oust are visitated by the veiled horror. And, he added, me are relying entirely, see the 43rd of Elizabeth, on the weightiness of the mirror's breath. Puffat, unsight-bared ambusher, relentless foe to social and business success. Hoary Helene, it might have been a happy evening, but... And they vituperated each other, Canis et Coliaber, with the wildest ever wielded since Tariestinus lashed Pisasfautium. Unicorn, Ungulant, Uvaloid, Oski Beak, and Bully Folly answered Volleyball. Nuvoletta, in her light dress, spun of 16 shimmers, was looking down on them, leaning over the banny stars and listening all she childishly could,
how she was brightened when Shoulderups in his globbering hockskeed, his welkin stuck, and how she was overcloosed when Kneesnobs on his zwivel was make acting such a pulse of him sharp. She was alone. All her nubied companions were a-sleeping with the squirrels. Their mither, Mrs. Moonin, was off in the worst corner scrubbing the back steps of number 28. Fover, that scanned. He was up in Norwood's soccer parlour, eating oceans of Voking's blemish. Nuvoletta listened as she reflected herself. Though the heavenly one, with his constellatria and his emanation stood between, and she tried all she tried to make the Mookse look up at her, but he was for too adiaptotously far-seeing, and to make the gripes hear how coy she could be, though he was much too schismatically auricular about his ends to heed her. But it was all Miles' vapour moist. Not even her faint reflection, Nuvolucia, could they toke their noses off, for their minds were intrepified fate and bungless curiosity, were conclaved with Heliogoblius and Commodus and Enobarbarus and whatever the coordinate dickens they did, as their damn protch of papers and bookstubs said. And if that was their spiration, and if theirs could duiperate her queen dim, as if she would be third party to such on such proceedings, she tried all she winsome ways her 4 winds had taught her. She tossed her swoon stelliationous hair like la princesse de la petite Bretagne, and she rounded her minion's arms like Mrs. Cornwallis West, and she smiled over herself like the beauty of the image of the posts of the daughter of the Queen of the Emperor of Ireland, and she sighed after herself as were she born to bride with tristi or tristissimus. But, sweet Madonine, she might fair as well have carried her daisy's worth to Florida, for the Mookse, a dog-mad aconite, were not amused, and the gripes, the doubly boused Catholic, was painfully obliviscent. I see, she sighed. There are manner. The sisp of the wisp of the sigh of the soft sing at the stir of the ver gross o a rundo of a long one in midias reeds. And shades began to glitter along the banks, greepsing, dusk unto dusk, and it was as glooming as gloaming could be in the waste of all peaceable worlds. Metamnesia was all sunom, coloroso form brune, cytherior spiane, and eulande, enemerus, and enumerous. The Mookse had a sound eyes right, but he could not all hear. The gripes had a light ears left, but he could but ill see. He ceased, tongue and trit, and it was never so ever so dusk of both of them. But still moo thought on the deeps of his, the onst he would profound come, the morokes, and still grief held the scripes he would escape if by grace, and he had lucky noops. Oh, how it was dusk! From Valle Maria to Gracia Plena, dormimos echo. Adieu, adieu. It was so dusk that the tears of night began to fall. First by 1s and 2s, then by 3s and 4s, at last by 5s and 6s and 7s, for the tired ones were wecking, as the weep now with them. Oh, 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 parle plus. Then there came down to the thither bank a woman of no appearance. I believe she was a black with chills at her feet. And she gathered up his hoariness the Mookse malta mournfully, where he was spread, and carried him away to her invisible dwelling, that heights Aquila Rapex. For he was the holy, sacred solemn, and the poship spit of her boship's apron. So you see the Mookse he had reason, as I knew, and you knew, and he knew all along. And there came down to the hither bank a woman too all-important, though they say that she was comely spite of the cold in her heed. And for he was as like it as blow it to a hawker's hank. She plucked down the gripes, torn panicky all to tone, and angio from his limb, and carried away its beotibus with her, its beatitubes with her, to her unseen shieling. It is de role coeli. And so the poor gripes got wrong. For that is always how a gripes is, always was and always will be. And it was never so thoughtful of either of them. And there were left now only an elm tree and but a stone, palled with Pietrus, siere but sole. Oh, yes, and nuvoletta, alas. Then Nuvoletta reflected for the last time in her little long life, and she made up all her myriads of drifting minds in one. She cancelled all her engagements. She climbed over the banisters. She gave a childy, cloudy cry, Nue, Nue. A light dress fluttered. She was gone. And into the river that had been a stream, for 1,000 of tears had gone on her, and come on her, and she was stout and struck on dancing, and her muddied name was Mrs. Liffey. There fell a tear, a single tear, the loveliest of all tears. I mean for those Cry Love Fables fans who are keen on the pretty common-faced sort of thing you meet by Hope Harrods, for it was a leap tear. But the river tripped on her by and by, lapping as though her heart was broke. Why, way, oh way, I so silly to be flowing, but I know canna stay. No applause, please. Bast! The Roma Scott Natal Shaker will go round your circulation in Diodursus. A la boy, Major. I'll take your reactions in another place after themes. Nolan Brown, you may now leave the classroom. Joe, Peters, Fox. As I have now successfully explained to you my own natural-born rations, which are even in excise of my vaulty brain, ensure me that I am a mouth's more deserving case by genius. I feel in sympathos for my ever-devoted friend and half-alof unwashed Nakis Nakovich, darling Jem, darling small fox, Horosa show. I could love that man like my own Ambo for being so barely clever, though he's an awful curlass, and I must slave to methodiousness. I want him to go and live like the Theobald in charge of the night brigade on Tristan da Cunha, Isle of Man overboard, where he'll make number 106 and be near and accessible. The meeting of mahoganies be the waves, rementious me that this exposed sight, though it pines for an umbrella of its own, and needs a shelter belt of the true service sort to keep its bows clean. The weeping beaches, Piscia and Telia, are in a wild state about it, ought to be classified as cricket, but Will Ohm and his two nurserymen advisors suggested, under genus inexhaustible, when we refloat upon all the butternut, sweet gum and manna ash, red cedra, which is so prevalent there as if there was hawthorns in Coracasa, which ought to look as plain as a lodgepole to anybody until we are introduced to that pintacata of Verni Rubius, where the duality is pictured for us in a pure stand, which we do not doubt has a habitat of doing, but without those self-sown seedlings, which are a species of proof that the largest individual can occur at or in or an elevation such as East Cana Hillock, where it mixes with Footh Acacians and common sallies and is tender. Vox populus, as we say in Hickory Hockory, and I wish we had some more glasses of arbor vitae. Why wrote by the roadside or on over alum pot, Alderman White Beaver is Daccio. He ought to go away for a change of ideas, and he'd have a world of things to look back on. Do, sweet Daniel. If I weren't a Jones in myself, I'd elect myself to be his dolphin in the wilds below, because he is such a barefooted rubber with my super stocks pulled over his face that I publicked in my best back garden for the latification of siderodromites and the irony of the stars. You will say it is most un-English, and I shall hope to hear that you will not be wrong about it. But I, further, feeling a bit husky in my truths, will you please come over and let us more morgiously to each other down below our vices? I am underheard by old Bill Faust. Welsh is full of kirks. The cool skittle is Philip Deblinite. Mr. Whist is there over beyond the want not. Welsh and whist are as thick of thins, other as Faust on the Deblinite. Guns and shuto estas perto la tapizo malgranda. Le legas al si en sia chambro. Quelque foge functas, quelque foge srumptas, shultros hod in gil vi fartas, mia nigra sinjoro? And from the point of fun where I am crying to arrive, you they are on all four as foible-minded as you can feel they are fable-bodied. My hearers will recoil with a great leisure how at the outbreak before trespassing on the space question, where even Michelangelines have food to dread, I prove to myself as to your satisfaction how this abject all through the quick quid of Professor Ciandoloni's too frequently hypothecated bettermensch is nothing so much more than a mere cash dime, however genteel he may want ours, if we please. I am speaking to us in the second person. For to this graded intellectual's dime is cash, and the cash system. You must not be allowed to forget that this is all contained, the system, in the dog marks of Oregon on Spurios. Means that I cannot now have or not have a piece of cheaps in your pocket at the same time and with the same manners as you can now not half the cheek apiece I've in mind, unless Burrus and Caseous have not or not have simultaneously disentangled themselves, sell there to sold there, once in the dirty days of by and by. Burrus, let us like to imagine, is a genuine prine. The real choice, full of natural grace, the mildest of milk stuffs, yet unbeaten as a ricicide, and, of course, obsoletely unadulterous, whereat Caseous is obversely the revise of him, and in fact not an ideal choose by any meals, though the better man of the two is meltingly addicted to the more casual side of the irreveliste case, and, let me say it at once, as zealous over him as is passably he. The same home and history seeks, and hide a pence, which we used to be reading for our pre-purgatory hot shot. Till Duddy shut the shopper up, and Mutty, poor Mutty, I brought us our poor suppy. Ah, who, how, in Assisius and Oleosus and Silius Volatilis and Petrus Papricus, our old party quite united round the slat-bowel in commons. Father Salamos himself, and that sprog of a Pedersil, and his sprig of thyme, and a dozen of the Murphy buds, and a score and more of the hot young Capels, and Letucia in her green sleeves, and you two, and me three, twinsome bibs, but handsome ates. Like Shakespeare in eggs, but there's many a split pretext bowl and jowl, and stop screwing that cork shut. To understand this as well as you can, feeling how backward you are in your down-to-the-ground benches, I have completed the following arrangement for the coarse use of stools, and if I don't make away with you, I'm beyond Caesar out nolust. The older scissors, tyrants, regicide is too good for you. Become endurable from age, the compositor of the farce of destiny, however, makes a thumpledrum mistake by letting off this piano-forte effect of his first act. That is where the juke comes in. Having been sort of nine-knived and truly removed, this soldier, author Batman, for all his commentaryism, is just another of those soft-sized bubbles who never quite got the Sandhurst out of his eyes, so that the champagne he draws for us is as flop as a plankrieg. The twin Freer types are billed to make their reappearance as the new neck of knife knickknocks on the deserted Champ de Bouteilles. A most cursory reading into the Persic Aurelian's hostelry shows us how Phonomag Ula picked up that proper numen out of a collection of prefixes through the permeating connoisseur of Caucasian offspring of this son of a cock is as Satan as there's a tub and a tubulusk. Ostiac della voga marina, but that I deny the fact of wanting to waste point. I could paint you to that butter cheese-it, if you had some wash. More de vialive. Oh, me no nonsense. Why, the case is as inessive, as impulsive as Casum cans. Their interlocutive is comprovocative, just as every hasy hates to having a husband in her nose. Caseous may bethink himself a thought of a caviter, but Burrus has the richly rounded head that goes best with tough-thinking defensive fideism. He has the lack of wisdom under every dent of his laughter, while the other follows oni vesi milky indeed mimi, laughing over the linnets and weeping over the union. He hisn't the hay og, he lisn't the lug. Pooh-hoo. And each night sim Mrs. Mand he winks he had the same again. It was aptly and corrigidly stated, and it is royally needless for one ex ungue leonum to say by whom, that his seeing craft was that clarity as were the whole borough of Putrasburg,
to be ever launched over him, pitch batch he could still make out with his ostrich the green mote in Ireland's eyes. Let me tell you the full truth of Burrus when he wore a yonker. Here it is, a charming tool in 6x7s, a cleanly lined by the gods, a king off duty and a jaw forever. And what a cheery ripe outlook, good help me, Deus vi Deus. If I were to speak my whole mouthful to Arinum about it, you should call me the foremost element in your midst of fame. Eat ye up, heat ye up, sings the soulman in the psalm. Butirum et melcomedit et sciat reprober malum et eliger bonum. This, of course, also explains why we were taught to play in the childhood. Der Hensli ist dein Butterbrot, mein Butterbrot, und Kobi ist dein stinking Kot. Ja, ja, ja. This, in fact, just to show you, is Caseous, the brother Scotch or puer tyrant. A hole or two, the high stinks of forefelt and any go prigging worms. Jesu, you complain, and hi must say you are not wholly in the wrong. Thus we can escape our likes and mislikes, exiles or ambushiers, beggar in neighbour, and this is where the dime show advertisers advance the temporal belief plea. Let us be tolerant of antipathies. Nex quovis burro num fit Caseous. I am not hereby giving my final endorsement to the learned ignorance of the Caseous philosophism, in which old Nicholas pegs it down that the smarter the spin of the top, the sounder the span of the bottom. What the worthy old auberginiste ought to have meant was, the more stolidly immobile in space appears to me the bottom, which is presented to use in time by the top primo mobilisc, etc. And I shall be misunderstood if understood to give an unconditional sine qua non to the heroicized furry boats of the Nolanist theory, or at any rate of that substrate of apart from history where the Theophil swears that on principial he was the pointing start of his odios by comparison, and that whilst eggs will fall cheapened all over the world, the beurre will be dear on the brie. The beurre will be dear on the brie. Whew. Now, while I am not out now to be taken up as unintentionally recommending this silked bejorg Tyron Dynamon machine for the more economical helix trolleys of these amboadipides, until I can find space to look into it myself a little more closely first, I shall go on with my decisions after having shown to you in good time how both products of our social stomach, the excellent Dr. Borrowman, I noticed, by the way, from his amended food theory, has been carefully digesting the very wholesome criticism I helped him to in my Princeps edition, which is all too much to the cod, are mutually polarized in incompatibility of any delusional acting as ambivalent to the fixation of his pivotism. Positing, as above, two males pools, the one the pictor of the other, and the umber the scotia of the one, and looking wantingly around our undistributed middle, between males we fear we must wastefully want a female to focus, and on this stage there presently appears a cowrie maid M, whom we shall often meet below, who introduces herself upon us at some precise hour, which we shall again agree to call absolute zero, or the babbling pomp of Platonism, And so, like that former son of a Kish who went up and out to the found his farmer's ashes, we come down home gently on our turned about asses to meet Margarine. We now romp through a period of pure lyricism of shame-bred music. Technologically, let me say, the appetizing entry of this subject on a full chest of vials is plumply putting the cart before d'oeuvres, evidenced by such words in distress as, I cream for thee, sweet Margarine, and the more hopeful, oh, Margarina, still in the bowl is left the lump of gold. Correspondents, by the way, will keep on asking me what is the correct garnish to serve with trachines. Tansy soft, enough. The pawn-breaking pathos of the first of these shoddy pieces reveals it as a Caseous effort. Burrus's bits is often used for a toast. Craniculture can tell us very precisely in need, indeed, how and why this particular streak of yellow silver first appeared on, not in, the bowel, that is to see, the human head, bald, black, bronze, brown, brindled, betteraved, and blanche-manged, where it might be usefully compared with an earwig on a full bottom. I am offering this to Signorina Cuticura, and I intend to take it up and bring it under the notice of Herr Harleen, by way of diverting his attentions. Of course, the unskilled singer continues to pervert our wiser ears by subordinating the space element, that is to sing the aria to the time factor, which ought to be killed ill tempore. I should advise any unborn singer who may still be among my heeders to forget her temporal diaphragm at home, the best thing that could happen to it, and attack a roulade with a swift colpo de glottide to the lug. Though Mace, I will insist, was reclined from overdoing this, his recovery often being slow. And then, on the third dead beat, to close her eyes and open her mouth, to see what spice I may send her. How cease the cantatrici. I fain would be solo. Arouse thee, my valor, and save for e'er me troubadour. I shall have a word to say in a few yards about the acoustic and architectural management of the tone hall, but as ours is a vivarius, where one plant's brief is a lunger's planner's bicent, and you may not care for argon, it will be very convenient for me for the emolument to pursue Burrus and Caseous for a rung or two up their isoscellating biangle. Every admirer has been my goulash of Marge. She is so like this sister, you don't know. And they both dress A-L-I-K-E, which I titled The Very Picture of a Needless Woman, which in the present ornates our national cruet stand. This genre of portraiture of changes of mind, in order to be truly torse, should evoke the bush soul of females, so I am leaving it to the experienced victim to complete the general suggestion by the mental addition of a wallopy bound, or, should the zoological zealot prefer it, a kangaroo tear. The hat boxes which composed Rumba, Lady Trabazond, Marge in her excelsis, also comprise the climactogram, up which B and C may fondly be imagined ascending, and are suggestive of gentlemen's spring modes, these modes carrying us back to the superimposed clay layers of Eocene and Pleistocene formation, and the gradual morphological changes in our body politic, which Professor Abahi Ahori of Philadespuanis, whose
blue butterbust I have just given his coupe de grace to, neatly names a boîte à surprises. The boxes, if I may break the subject gently, are worth about 4 pence per box, but I am inventing a more patent process, foolproof and perfect. I should like to ask that Sherlock Holmes person who is out for removing the roofs of our criminal classics by what deductio ad demonum he hopes de tacto to detect anything unless he happens of himself movabile tectu to have a slate off. After which they can be reduced to a fragment of their true crust by even the youngest of Margies, if she will take place to be seated and smile if I please. Now there can be no question about it either, that I, having done as much, having quite got the size of that demilitary young female, we will continue to call her Marge, whose types may be met with in any public garden, wearing a very dressy affair, known as an Ethel of instep length, and with a real fur reduced to 3/9 and muffin cap to tone. They are angel skin this fall, ostentatiously hemming apologetically over the shirtness of some sweet garment, when she is not sitting on all the free benches avidly reading about it, but evidently on the lookout for him, or so thrilled about the best-dressed dolly pram and beautiful elbow competition, or at the movies swallowing sobs and blowing mixed quits over Child Chaplin's latest, or on the verge of the gutter with some bobbed hair, brief-frocked baby ma's toddler. The Smythes now keep 2 domestics and aspire to 3 male ones, a shover, a buttlegger, and a sectary, held hostage at arm's length, teaching his infant majesty how to make waters worse. I am closely watching Master Pules, as I have reasons to suspect from my post that her little man is a secondary school teacher under the boards of education, a voted disciple of Infantulus, who is being utilized thus publicly by the seducente infanta to conceal her own more masculine personality by flaunting frivolous finery over men's inside clothes. For the femininity of that tota mulier will always lack the musculink of a virum virum. My solutions for the proper parturience of matters and the education of victorious mites must stand over from the moment till I tackle this tickler hussy for occupying my attentions. Margarina, she's fond of Burrus, but a lick and a lack, she's very fond of Chi. The important influence exercised on everything by his East Asian imports has not been till now fully flavored, though we can comfortably taste it in this case. I shall come back for a little more to say farther on. A Cleopatrician in her own right, she at once complicates the positions, while Burrus and Caseous are contending for her mystery by implicating herself with an elusive Antonius, a wop, who would appear to hug a personal interest in refined cheese of all shades, at the same time as he wags an antomine art of being rude like the boar. This Antonius Burrus Caseous group triad may be said to equate the qualis equivalent with the older so-called talus on talus, one just as quantly as in the hyperchemical echinomantarchy, the tantum ergons illuminate the quantum urge, so that eggs is to weigh as way is to zeed, like your golf child's Abe Boob caddy. And this is why any simple Philadelphus of a fool you like to dress, an Althemisthus Lotonian,
X-legged fat recite, may be awfully green to one side of him and fruitfully blue on the other, which will not screen him, however, from appealing to my grope-searching eyes through the strongholds of my acropole, as a boosted, blasted, bleating, blatant, bloating, blasphemous idiot who cannot tell a bomb from a pineapple when he steals one, and one-up sing his psalm with the Kong and our gregational pom-poms with the canting crew. No, topsman to your Tarpeia, this thing, Mr. Abbey, is nefand, and taking off saltstuffs and alkalike matters, I hope we can kill time to reach the salt, because there's some force-glass nutric acids bittering in the salt pewter for you to plump your pottage in. The thundering legion has stormed Olymp, that it end. 12 tabular times till now have I edicted it. Meris genius de Caseous, moritur te salutat, my famous Themis races run, so let democracy take the highmost. Abraham Trippier, those old diligences are quite out of date. Read next answer. I'll beat you so long. Big-tempered, why not take direct action? See previous reply. My unchanging word is sacred. The word is my wife, to expanse and expound, to vend and to venerate, and may the curlews crown our nuptials, till breaths us depart. Wayman, beware would you change with my years. Be as young as your grandmother, the ringman in the wrong shop, but the right words by the rote order. Ubi lingua non cupacit, ibi fas. Adversus hossum semper sac. She that will not feel my full moon, let her peal to thee as the hoyden and the impudent. That man that hath no Moses in his soul, nor is not awed by conquests of words law, who never with himself was fed, and leaves his soil to lave his head, when his hopes and his highlows from whisking his woe. If he came to my preach a proud purse-broken ranger, when the heavens were welling to spite of their spout, for to beg for a bite in our bark no danger, would meself and Mac Jeffet four in hand foot him out? Aye, were he my own breast brother, my doubled with love and my single biased hate, were we bred by the same fire and signed with the same salt, had we tapped from the same master and robbed the same till, were he tucked in the one bed and bit by the one flea, homo gallant and hemi cap noise, bum and dingo, jack by churl, though it broke my heart to pray it, still I'd fear I'd hate to say. 12. Sacer esto? Answer. Semus sumus.